Okay, started.
Okay, just waiting to see you pop up here. 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. That means time to get going on our final chat. Zane Kaplansky is live now. Cool. Hey, that's me. Willa has set me up back here in my kitchen to do our chopped beef liver demonstration for you today. And I've got a little monitor here beside me so I can see any questions that you might ask or comments that you might put up during the Facebook Live chopped beef liver demonstration. Late last night, Will and I did the prep demo, and I'm sure if you look through my wall, my stories, you'll find the recipe as well as the prep that we did to get to this point. I'll show it all to you now, and we'll put it together and make some chopped liver. I kind of realized that the prep is half the work, so this should only take a few minutes. The prep video took about 20 minutes, as you'll see, and there's only 4 ingredients in this recipe. There's the liver itself, and yesterday this all spawned because Willa found some beef liver in the local grocery store, so I asked her to get a 3-pound piece. They cut it for her. We cut off a few liver steaks. That's what the Bradshaws had for dinner, was pan-fried liver with bacon and onions, which is a classic, something that I had on the menu at the deli for many, many years. And then we kept the rest of it for the chopped liver. This is that liver that has been baked in the oven with salt and pepper, and that's all. There's no other anything that's been added to this. And essentially I cooked it till it was done. So when you get a whole piece of liver, it's a big lobe, and after you've trimmed out all the chewy, less enjoyable parts, you're left with liver in different sizes. I'm going to wash my hands again just because you haven't seen me do it. And the 4 ingredients again are the liver, eggs. So we've got 1 hard-boiled egg per pound of liver, and because I'm making 2 pounds of liver, we're going to use 2 eggs, but I've got some boiling right now. Chicken schmaltz. So this chicken schmaltz is one that I made a few months ago from rendered chicken fat from chickens that we roasted. And then what you do is you take your chicken fat and you simmer that with some sliced onions. And that brings out this schmaltz, which is sort of a pale yellow, beautiful color and an incredible flavor. I mentioned during the prep broadcast yesterday, or maybe it was even the teaser before that, Michael Ruhlman's book, The Book of Schmaltz, and it's wonderful if you want to learn how to make your own schmaltz. It can be chicken or turkey or duck. And then using fats from other animals as well to cook with is something I'm a big fan of, but this was a wonderful book about schmaltz. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't also mention Michael Wex's wonderful book, Rhapsody in Schmaltz. And today happens to be Michael's wife Marilla's birthday, so I want to give a big thank you and happy birthday. And I'll tell you why. Because Michael and Marilla were the hosts of storytelling at the deli for many, many years. And it was a great story and something that really changed what we did in the restaurant to a great degree. And it's something I'm very grateful for as well. So I had the realization that Sunday nights in the restaurant were very, very quiet. Culturally, quite often Jews enjoy, at least in my family, Chinese food on Sunday nights. And as a consequence, my restaurant and quite a few of my customers being Jewish, we were not very busy on Sunday nights. And I wanted to try and figure out a way to fix that. And I had a customer who came to me and he told me that he wrote a story that he wanted to tell and to create a storytelling night out of it at the restaurant. And I'm just going to turn off my boiled eggs. And so we did it. We set up a storytelling night, and the gentleman came in and he told his story. But the problem was that I think he read the story as opposed to telling the story, and it didn't go off the way I think that he would have liked. But I saw the power of storytelling in the restaurant, and I called Michael and Marilla, and I asked them if they would be interested in hosting a weekly storytelling in the deli night, which they did on Sunday nights, and they did it for years too. And then Sunday nights became busier and busier, and Michael and Marilla moved from a weekly storytelling night to a monthly storytelling night, and the whole thing, I think, went on for, I don't want to say 5 years, but it was quite a long run and quite a long stretch. And we heard some of the most incredible storytellers that are in Toronto and that pass through Toronto at that storytelling night. Sometimes my staff would tell stories. It was really a beautiful thing. And both Michael and Marilla, so again, this is Michael's book, Rhapsody in Schmaltz. He's also the author of Just Say New, Born to Kvetch, which is about how my people are genetically predisposed to complain about things. And food, as Michael will tell you in the book, is one of the things that we love to complain about. So I know that when I say I'm going to do chopped beef liver, that there are certain people, like my cousin Lori, who called me out on, well, what about chicken livers? And that's right. So if you grew up in a tradition that used beef for chopped liver, that's what you know. And if you grew up in a tradition that used chicken for chopped liver, to you, that's what chopped liver is. In my house, my mother always used to use beef, and consequently on my menu, which we actually have a copy of on our wall here. So if you're just tuning in, I'm Zane Kaplansky. You know that because you clicked on the little thing. And this is my kitchen in Tofino, British Columbia. So my wife, Willa, is our producer and camera person, camera operator. She's the crew today. And she was lucky enough to be able to find some beef liver in the co-op yesterday. We're turning it into chopped liver for you today. So again, coming back to where we are right now, we've baked off our liver with salt and pepper. We have our eggs boiled. I've just finished boiling one of the 2 eggs that I made yesterday that I prepped. Didn't boil all the way through, so the shell didn't peel off it very cleanly. So I realized this at about 10 minutes ago, and I went to peel the eggs. And so I've got 2 more eggs that I've just finished boiling.
Hi, Margaret.
Who's there?
Margaret Rowland. She said hi, Willa, and I said hi to her back.
That's really
So
cool.
do you have a trick for cooling down the eggs quickly so you can peel them?
So I've got a little bowl next to the sink, and I've got some ice in that. And so the eggs in the ice should cool very quickly, and I'll be able to use them. And then I've also got, we used most of this schmaltz in with 2 onions, and we simmered those down for about 45 minutes, almost an hour. So they're this nice golden brown color. You can burn them quite easily, so don't take your eyes off them. We used a cast iron pan on about the 3 setting, on a 10 setting dial, as I have on the range behind me. And we caramelized these onions, or fried them in schmaltz, I should say. Chopped liver, onions, schmaltz, and eggs. Salt and pepper. That's pretty much the whole recipe. Now, I did think I said yesterday too that Anthony Rose in his wonderful restaurant Fat Pasha does a tableside, also Sammy's Romanian Grill in New York, does a wonderful tableside chopped liver. Easy to do. Take a glass bowl, take a fork, and you can mix all this up. Sammy's in New York actually has little spouts and pours of liquefied schmaltz at their table, and you can see that even just having the schmaltz out of the fridge for the last few minutes is starting to have that beautiful sheen and to liquefy itself. You can also see that I don't have very much left. So when we put the liver in with the processor, if I do need more fat, there's a whole bunch of alternatives that I can do. First of all, I'm going to throw the onions in, and there's quite a lot of schmaltz here. Second...
Mary Mitchell wants to know what schmaltz is.
Schmaltz! Thank you, Mary Mitchell. So, Mary Mitchell's a wonderful friend
She
of
also
ours.
misspelt it.
That's cool, too. Well, it's a transliteration. So schmaltz is S-C-H-A-M-A-L-T-Z, schmaltz. And it literally means poultry fat. It could be any kind of poultry fat. It could be chicken, as this one is, duck, or goose, for example. And you render the fat from the bird reserve it, and then you simmer an onion in that fat, and the resulting fat takes on this light pale yellow color and this wonderful depth of flavor. Schmaltz really is the essential cooking medium of Jewish food, and it's, I think, one of the reasons why Michael Wex called his book Rhapsody in Schmaltz, and Michael Ruhlman, a wonderful cookbook author, has also written the book just called The Book of Schmaltz. It is to Jewish food what olive oil is for Italian cooking, or ghee is for Indian food, or peanut oil is for Chinese. It's that essential different flavor. Schmaltz has a lot of Yiddish words too, has taken on a Broadway connotation. You say someone's being kind of schmaltzy, they're pulling at your heartstrings, or they're sort of hamming it up a little bit. You like that, hamming it up? Schmaltz, Jewish, I love it. Which is to say also that earlier today when I made, or maybe it was yesterday, when I made bacon, I showed you my method of putting down tin foil, and I always reserve the bacon fat. And so if I run out of schmaltz for this recipe, I may reach over, because this has a wonderful, bacon fat has a wonderful saltiness to it that will work really, really well with the chopped liver.
Phyllis says that's the smallest portion of fat she's ever seen.
And she's entitled to say that. You have to use what you have on hand, Phyllis. Phyllis Grossman is one of my favorite Jewish cooks, and wonderful friend as well. She and Saul have had Willa and I over their house many, many times. And even more than that, going through I would say hell that I went through at times in the restaurant business in Toronto. I had all kinds of conflicts, and the landlord, the restaurant business itself is a very challenging business. And Saul and Phyllis are these two people who would just drop off food for me. I mean, talk about bring coals to Newcastle. I'm in a restaurant. I own a restaurant. I have a food truck and a catering business, but these two wonderful people would bring by the most heartwarming and just loving gestures of food for me, whether it was Helzel or one of their many, many different kinds of borscht, or just examples of the kinds of food that both Saul and Phyllis might have grown up with. And they are wonderful friends and incredibly generous people as well. Phyllis also, I think, is our 3-time winner, 2 at least. I have the trophy around somewhere of our Letkapalooza competition. So Saul's family has a potato grater that Phyllis uses to win the crown, and then she makes incredible potato latkes. Definitely something I should do at some point in my demo journey. And there's a knock at the door, which is the perfect segue. So I'm going to continue as Willa goes and sees who's here.
Hey, what's up?
And so I'm going to put the liver in first to get some texture out of it. Now, when I trimmed the liver yesterday, I came up with smaller pieces and bigger pieces. So I took the smaller pieces out of the oven sooner so they wouldn't overcook. And then I left the bigger pieces until they were a little bit, I still like them a little bit pink in the middle. Not sort of on the rare side, but certainly on the medium side. I don't believe that you need to absolutely cook the life out of the liver. Again, as we discussed yesterday, there may be some disagreement on that, and that's fine. You can make it however you like it. And actually, that's another thing that we wanted to do with this demonstration today, was show you a couple of variations on chopped liver, that once you've made the basic classic 4-ingredient variety. So I'm going to throw this egg in from yesterday, and I've got, better if I don't throw it into the pusher part, right in. And I'm going to peel one of the eggs that I just cooked. I've got this ice bath going, as I say, and I can feel, I'm going to give them another couple of minutes actually. I'm going to put the rest of the schmaltz into the food processor. And as Phyllis noticed, I didn't have very much left. I did use a lot of it with the onions. And I'll augment this with some different kinds of fat, possibly. So you can call me a heretic if you'd like, but I do love the taste of bacon fat. So, and I don't care what you think of me. How about that, eh? So, crumbles up pretty fast. Let's keep going a little bit. And I'm going to, I might add the onions by hand because I like to keep the whole larger pieces of the onions. And you do want to be a little bit careful when you're blending this that it doesn't get too hot inside. You don't want to recook the liver itself. But I am going to add a little of the garlic oil.
Yeah, well, the third Blake, so I'm just going to
Use some of this other fat. I'm going to use another egg as well. There we go. The second egg is in.
Mary Mitchell imagined that chopped liver would be cubed.
Well, you know, as I said, Mary, you can, and Anthony Rose does, a tableside chopped liver at Fat Passion. So you can do a much more rustic version of this, not using the food processor. But I like to think of chopped liver as a poor man's pate, instead of using foie gras or some of the better livers that are available. Using beef, just give us a little stir around, is much more affordable and delicious as well. So that's Willa on camera. Willa on camera. That's awesome. And I also start to say that maybe you're out of the room. That we've cooked up a couple of variations on the chopped liver today by putting some hot water to some of Chef Paul Moran's products. This one is his Wild BC Macro Kelp. And this one is his Wild BC Morel Mushrooms. And so Paul sells both of those, as you can see, under his own label. And so all we did was pour some hot water on the kelp and on the mushrooms. And I can tell you that the water itself that we use for the boiling will have a lot of the flavor of the kelp and the mushrooms. And I thought both flavors would likely go really well with the chopped liver itself. So it's something that we can add. And the consistency is really nice. I probably should have cut down that bigger piece of liver before I put it in the processor. And then you want to push down the sides too, because you know what? I'm going to take this one out and cut it, because everything seems to be blended nicely except for these two pieces. And I'm just going to cut them down.
So Scott Neville asked if the squeezed bottles of mustard are available.
So the squeezed bottles of mustard are kind of available, actually. There's a bakery in Elora, Ontario, that has our squeezed bottle mustard, and there's a few other delis, Vincenzo's in Guelph, in Waterloo, and the Hillfire in Fonthill, Ontario, also uses the mustard in their squeezed bottles. But those are sort of special arrangements that we have with those guys. It wouldn't really, for us, eventually, to be able to do that kind of presentation on the mustard and sell it squeeze bottle style is something that we want to move towards. But for now, what Will and I sort of settled on was the box. So Scott was a very early adopter. I think actually Scott probably got his in the summertime, very soon after they arrived. So Scott and his wife Kathy were, I think, heading to a Blue Jay game that day, and it wasn't a game that I was at. I was at the Blue Jays last summer. I had a Kaplansky's kiosk in their pop-up kitchen, which was an amazing experience. But Scott contacted me over the email on Gmail and asked if he could get mustard, and so I actually drove it down to him and Kathy at was it Mill Street, the ale house that they have, and dropped them off a case of the 4 flavors of mustard, our variety pack. We do a food service size. So we have 4-liter pails available, and we have 20-liter pails available, and we have 1-liter containers. Actually, I don't know how well this will look on, because this is kind of depleted, but this is the horseradish, and so we have this same label that we've developed for the squeeze bottles for these ones, for the liters, and for the 40 liters as well. It's so nice when people use the mustard in their restaurants and on their menus. You know, it's a real compliment to us to incorporate our product with what you're doing. So we always love to see when that happens. And we're almost there, I think. It's pretty pureed, and the onions are just going to make it just that much more so. Beautiful. I'm going to stir the onions in my hand. As I say, I wanted to maintain the consistency.
So Joanne's saying that she got lots of strange looks when she bought nothing else but liver at the store yesterday.
Well, Joanne, I'm glad you're here, and it's so good for you. I posted this little story, I think, on my cousin Lori's comment on the recipe that I posted video yesterday, that when I was in the restaurant on College Street, almost every day, if not absolutely every day, I used to take that's more onions than I had meant to put in. I go every single day. I'd take a little end of rye bread, and I would go to the refrigerator in the kitchen where we kept the liters of chopped liver. And you know, in the restaurant, you're making tens of liters at a time. So we would literally have these huge hotel pans full of livers that we would either trim ourselves, or depending on the source, we would have trimmed for us. But usually we did it ourselves. And we'd bake those off, and we would make these schmaltzy onions by the tray as well, because we use this in so many of our dishes. Somebody else this morning was commenting that they were going to make the Getty at home, and you know, it's a wonderful memory, and you don't think of it every day that we had an item on our menu called the Getty, which was named after Rush's lead singer Geddy Lee, and Geddy used to come to the restaurant, and he would ask me to make fried beef salami, wurst, with smoked salmon and fried onions in scrambled eggs. And so scrambled eggs, wurst, lox, and schmaltz onions. And then he told me when he asked me for it for a few times, and then I asked him about it one time, and he said, you know, my dad used to make that for me when I was a little boy. And the idea that, he would have that memory in my restaurant and share that with me. And then, at some point I was looking at menu updates and I thought, yeah, I'd love to be able to share that with guests, that people came in. The fact that Getty is one of the biggest rock stars in our country, somebody that I grew up listening to. You couldn't go to a bar mitzvah during my youth without hearing the Moving Pictures soundtrack, Tom Sawyer and Red Barchetta and all those amazing songs. And to have him as a regular in the restaurant and somebody who had his own dish and so on was something that thrilled me beyond compare for sure. But being able to share that with people as well was a real joy. And whenever Rush was in town, the fans of the band would come by the restaurant in huge numbers, and they were awesome people. So it worked out phenomenally well. This is tasting time. We've got everything going on here. I think I'm going to ask Willa.
Oh, I don't know if I'm the person that you want.
You're not a liver fan, I know, but I will tell people that I'll taste it first, because usually the first thing that I always say when I try chopped liver is it needs more salt. It needs more salt. And it needs quite a bit more salt, actually. So one of the things that I'm going to... one trick my mother always taught me was a little hot water in with the chopped liver brings back the texture that you want. And so I'm going to boil up a little water to add to this. Last night, after we made our pan-fried liver, are we still going?
Yeah, we're still going.
We went down the road in here on the west coast, the town of Ucluelet, and our friends Leslie and Corey own a wonderful pizza restaurant called Abadanza, and we hadn't been for too long, probably many weeks. That's your tasting spoon. It's going to need more salt again, but give it a try. I love the flavor of it. And I'm just going to try and be artful with my packaging here. So, hate it?
I don't hate it. It tastes like liver.
It tastes like liver. It's funny. Growing up, I couldn't eat liver steak. I could only eat chopped liver, which I always loved. So I'm telling the story that I would always eat it with the end of the rye bread. And last night when we went to Abadanza, Corey and Leslie were making this homemade rye bread, which they warned us was a couple days aged, but this style of rye bread is exactly what you want with chopped liver, and a couple days of age only makes it more delicious and cracker-like. So I'm going to add a little more. Now, I did say as well that we've got some morel mushrooms and some kelp ready. So once we, I really like that. Let's try and adding. What do you think? Mushroom or kelp? Or both?
So there's a nice sweetness to it. Let's just taste a little bit of the liquid and see what we like.
That's true. We've never done this before. So, the kelp has a wonderful saltiness and earthiness to it that I really thought was going to go great with the liver, and I think it will.
I think
the mushroom is probably more subtle.
the mushroom is definitely way more subtle.
But the mushrooms themselves would probably go. Why don't we do both? Why don't we use the?
Oh yeah, we have enough to do like two.
Yeah. So why don't we do one with just a little bit of kelp liquid, because the liver itself is pretty stiff still. I think it could be creamier. That's a nice.
You're Aunt Carol Lou says that Nana loved the ends of the bread too.
Nano was Thelma Goodman. Thank you, Auntie, for tuning in. And Thunder and Thelma was my food truck that I had for many years, and I named after my Nana. She was and remains one of the most important influences in my life. And she was an incredibly bright, incredibly strong, and incredibly loving person who was always wonderful to me. My favorite story about my Nana was that when I was living in London, England, let's taste this now. When I was living in London, England, she came and visited me for a week, and she brought with her 6 mini blueberry pies that she made but didn't bake and then froze. And she double or triple wrapped them, and she smuggled them to London in her suitcase. That's really good, Willa.
Yeah?
Just adding Paul Moran's kelp boiling liquid brings a whole new dimension to this chopped liver.
Ooh, it's the sound of a truck.
Could they hear that at home? Probably.
I don't know. I'm just going to shut the door.
And I'm going to add some of his morel mushrooms as well that have been soaking in the water. I just think they're going to be a nice flavor and a nice texture accent as well.
So we got the question, is kelp and dulse the same thing?
Great question. And what does Google say?
Well, I'm not getting a good description of dulse. It's coming up as candy, which is definitely not what kelp is.
Like dulce, I think, is the...
Yeah. So, not knowing what dulse really is,
yeah,
I'm gonna say...
I wish Paul was here to
Yeah.
fill us in and talk a little bit more about what he does. Paul Moran was actually one of the very first guests on my Unprepared radio show here on Tough City Radio. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., I'm going to have Rich Francis on the show. You can listen live at toughcityradio.rocks, 9 a.m. Sundays, every Sunday. And then we do record the show, and we'll put a podcast link up on the Tough City Radio page, as well as on my own personal website, kaplanskis.com. We have suspended sales on the website, but if you're interested in our mustards or our t-shirts or anything else, this t-shirt is from Chinched Restaurant in beautiful St. John's, Newfoundland, and Sean and Michelle, who are Hussey and LeBlanc, respectively, are the owners of Chinched. Wonderful friends, and they were the very first people that I met in my love affair with Canada's most easterly province. They were guests with Adam Blanchard on my old radio show, I think back in 2013, 2014 maybe. And then Will and I visited for the first time in September of 2014 Roots, Rants and Roars, the food festival in September. We've been back every year for the last 5 years, hosting the last 2, and we feel like we have a whole second family on the east coast of Canada and Newfoundland. So always lovely to give them a shout out. This is again Sean and Michelle's shirt from Chinched. We also had our very first mustard party in St. John's, Newfoundland, hosted at Chinched Restaurant with Sean and Michelle. And we were watching Arthur O'Brien the other night on Facebook Live. Arthur played at our mustard party, but more importantly, he's an important part of a band called the Navigators. He and Freddie Sorensen, I shouldn't even try,
Sorry.
Arthur and Freddie, and hearing Arthur play even solo, his voice really touches something, both in Willa and myself. So, talk about touching something. Do you want to try this now with the...
Sure.
With the...
And we're going to try it with a little bit of bread?
Yeah.
And then we should talk about presentation. How
Sure.
do we present it? How do we serve it?
Wonderful.
If we're not going to serve it like this.
Good question. So, typically, part of what we're doing here is we're making and showing a lot of the dishes that we had intended to make at our Passover Seder celebration. And when I hosted Passover in the deli, and I did that for about 10 years, I would always have chopped liver on platters with lots of matzah and pickles and olives on the table, because one of the torturous aspects of Seder is that in the telling of the story, you don't eat until the end of the telling. And so for a lot of people, it's a lesson in deprivation and starvation and frustration, because you smell all these wonderful smells coming from the kitchen, but you don't get to eat any. And in some families, the way they tell the story takes hours, literally hours. And so I really wanted to tell the story, don't dwell. But we actually, I have the Haggadah right here. I'll grab it. And I'll show you. We ordered these. We got 25 of them, and this was the Haggadah that we used in the deli for years as well. Not the first year. The first year I used a different. It was a photocopied stack of pages, I think, that somebody had lent me from the egalitarian service. It didn't have Dayenu.
What?
And people wanted so Dayenu is a wonderful part of the Passover Seder.
It's like the only part I consistently remember.
Well, the song it's like an earworm. It gets in your head and it doesn't get out of your head. And Dayenu literally means it would have been enough. And Jews were so incredibly blessed to be emancipated from slavery in Egypt and sent through the desert on the journey to the Promised Land. The Ten Commandments, the Sabbath. There are so many gifts that were given to the Jewish people, as well as the freedom from slavery itself, but so many others as well, that Dayenu is a song that gives thanks, that any one of those things would have been enough to celebrate and give thanks for. And so then somebody showed me this Haggadah and the Dayenu prayer. On April the 8th, we will do our own Seder. Yeah. We are going to use the book. I am going to make Willa's parents suffer through it, and her sister Andrea will come over as well. You may not see the parents on camera. They are more camera shy. But Willa asked about presentation. So this is a dish that sits in a bowl with lots of matzah on the table when people sit down for the Passover Seder. And
should we put it in a bowl and present it nicely for our
sure.
camera now? So that people can see, because your bowl right now is just a little high-sided, so it's hard to see what the finished product will look like.
Here we go. I will. So this is our first time doing this. I really appreciate all of your artistic and camera direction. A little bit too big as well.
Too big as well. Let's use one of the. What this one?
Perfect. Thank you. Willa Bradshaw, everybody. Willa Bradshaw. And did anybody ask what your shirt says?
No.
It's one of my favorites of your sweatshirts, if not my absolute favorite. It says, "The entire cat population is my best friend," which is so true with Willa. She loves cats.
Wow, apparently there's a Bob Marley Haggadah.
There's a Bob Marley Haggadah?
Yeah,
and I'm just finding out about this? So, I would, if I had more schmaltz, thank you. If I had more schmaltz, I would pour more schmaltz on top. Maybe some of these onions for a final presentation flourish.
Oh yeah.
I really like Corey's rye bread. As I say, we picked this up yesterday from Corey and Leslie at Abadanza in Ucluelet. I'm coming to you live right now from Tofino, British Columbia. Beautiful downtown. Will and I have this lovely apartment in a building in Tofino. We moved here about a year ago. This is Willa's hometown. This is where she's from. This is Corey and Leslie's rye bread. So
Oh, so there's a suggestion that you could put the morels and kelp also as a little bit of a topping as well.
Great idea, actually. Love that idea.
Yeah.
And that's a really good. That's a really good example of a lot of the magic that happened to me in the restaurant business, where I would sort of say, "Hey, I want to do this," and I had incredible people on my team for a very long time who had creative ideas about how to make that happen better and better with better ideas. So I'm always open to hearing from people with their ideas and suggestions, and whoever that was that suggested that, thank you.
That was Scott again.
Scott Neville, thank you, bro. So Scott is my main man in the Kingston area. I don't want to overdo it.
Okay, I might come in for a little bit of a close-up. Do you mind?
Do it. I'm going to chop some. And we had planned on bring our Condiments and Chaos tour through the Thousand Islands, Kingston, and the islands area, Prince Edward County, all that good stuff. And we will, just not this year.
Very nice. Looks great, babe.
Is that great? Does that look good?
Yeah, it does actually.
Cool. Thanks for the idea with the garnish there, Scotty. So we've got our schmaltz onions, we've got palmerines, kelp, and which I believe is from the Bamfield area, but I'm not 100% sure where he got his, and morel mushrooms as well. And Paul is the winner of, I think, was it season 9 of Top Chef Canada? Last season, whatever it was, he won, which is super awesome. And he's a local chef here at the 1909 Kitchen at the Defino Resort and Marina. As humble and self-effacing and talented of a chef you will likely ever meet. And it's lovely to have him as a neighbor in this town as well. And I would encourage you to take a look at his products online. ChefPaulMoran.com, I think is his website, or is it paulmoran.com?
I have no idea.
Well, you can Google that and find out for yourself if you're interested. So he's got his wild mushroom morel mushrooms and the macro kelp. And he's got a couple of others as well. Do you have the different ones here?
I don't know where we stored them.
There you go. So thanks for coming along on our chop liver journey. I'm going to enjoy a little bit while we play the closing credits. Willa and I are going to plan a series of other cooking demos. We bought a beautiful brisket yesterday, and I thought actually we're going to get another piece of brisket too. We'll do brisket 2 ways, pastrami style, sort of smoked meat-ish, what I used to make in the restaurant with our smoked meat sandwiches. That's what we'll use with this whole brisket, and then we'll buy a piece of brisket or whatever they have at the grocery store, and we'll do a braised brisket. So that one, we will give you the ingredients hopefully 24 hours in advance, and a demo on everything you have to do to prepare for the actual cooking of the brisket. Braised means cooked, slowly covered, the pan covered in juices. So you can braise in a Dutch oven on the stove top, putting protein in, or it doesn't have to be protein, putting whatever you're cooking in a cooking medium liquid, cooking liquid medium, covered in that pan, or very commonly braising is done in containers covered with either a lid or with tin foil in the oven. So that's the braised brisket style. And then there's the pastrami style, which I don't really have a smoker here, so I'm just going to cure the brisket. It's going to take about a week to 10 days. Spice the brisket, and then I will roast it in the oven behind me likely. And keeping a regular temperature on my charcoal grill, we don't even have a lid for that thing. That'd be impossible to do. But I am going to show you how to do our rotisserie lamb, saucepan lamb. We're going to do a gefilte fish. Somebody today requested my cabbage borscht recipe. I will do my cabbage borscht recipe. I'm also going to do the white borscht recipe, that thank you, Willa, that I gave in this month's issue of Cycling Canada magazine. I was very excited about this. So, as many of you know, I took up cycling in 2016. I was looking for something to get me moving and an activity, a physical activity that might be a spark that would cause changes in my life. I signed up for Chef Cycle, which is part of the No Kid Hungry campaign. It's an annual 3-day endurance bike ride that used to happen in California. This summer it was planned for Bend, Oregon, which is kind of perfect for me because Will and I, living in Tofino, are a day's drive away from Bend. So it's really in our backyard. And before everything happened, I was really very focused on training for the ride, as well as being part of a team called the Canadians, along with John Jackson, who's our team captain, Chef Matt Beatty, and I think we're up to 8 or 9 other riders. Last year we were 10 or 11, so we want to surpass that at the next time we ride. I would love it if anybody watching this or any of these videos wanted to get in touch with me about cycling, Chef Cycle, cooking, whatever you want to get in touch with me about. I'd be happy to hear from you. You can email me, zane@kaplanskis.com, or post a comment or a question to my Facebook page or in Messenger. I'll be happy to get back to you. This is something that I believe hugely in, and I'm going to continue to train until the ride does happen. It'll happen, I think, in the fall, which is great. And otherwise, watch my page, or my website, for cooking demo schedules. We're going to do a series of these between now and whenever. And thanks to Willa for making all this happen. She set up the light, she set up the thing, she's got the camera on the tripod, and doing all the production stuff. Thank you for watching and listening. I'm going to make the rest of my chopped liver disappear. That's a magic trick that I've learned over the years, and enjoy some of it. One of the challenges with liver is that it does not have a long shelf life, but it does freeze well. So I'm going to leave this amount thawed that I'll eat over the next 2-3 days, and the rest of it I'm going to put in the freezer in a lidded container or in a reusable Ziploc bag, and I will be able to pull it out and use it at a future date. There we have it. We have the presentation, we have the storage, we have the story.
I think we're awesome.
Thanks for playing along.
Yeah. See you guys next time.